minute. So Patrick, if you want to take the lead.
Sure. Yeah. So I guess we're just talking about our research, right? Um, and I guess biomechanics and mechanobiology at Cornell as a whole. So my name is Patrick. I am in the Andar Wispuri lab. I'm a fourth year PhD student. And our and so one big goal of our lab is to better understand how we go from early overuse tendinopathies that are really common to later stage disease where you have degeneration and rupture, and eventually you need surgical repair. And so, in particular, I'm trying to better understand how these diseases progress from those early to late stages from a multi-scale biomechanical perspective. And so the reason why we care about those changes in biomechanics and structure and composition at multiple scales is because, number one, that affects how the tendon functions and how the joint functions, but it also affects the way that the cells respond to load. So their microscale environment will affect whether they'll apoptose or they'll further degenerate or they'll actually repair. And so by better understanding this disease progression at multiple scales, we hope that we can create preventative strategies or therapeutics that target some of these multi-scale changes.
Maybe we'll have Rebecca go next to give a brief overview, and then I guess we want to make sure just to keep lots of time for questions from the prospective students.
Yeah, absolutely. Hi, everyone. I'm Becca. I'm in Larry Benasser's lab. I'm a fifth-year PhD student, and Larry's lab covers a wide range of biomechanics and soft tissues. So he has different students working on meniscus, intervertebral disc, articular cartilage, and also on the lubrication side of things in the joint as well. And so specifically for me, I've been looking at how different osteoarthritic surgical treatments affect the local tissue mechanics and using that information to inform larger clinical practice. But yeah, all of the soft tissue, orthopedic, biomechanics, and tissue engineering is what Larry's lab is all
about. Tibra, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Tibra. I'm a fourth year PhD candidate, co-advised with Ankur Singh and Marlene Vandermeulen. So in Marlene's lab, we focus on our load-induced osteoarthritis model, looking at bone and cartilage changes. And currently we've kind of shifted toward also understanding some of the immune aspects with our loading model.
And Erin, did you want to add anything to Nellie's lab?
I mean, I guess the only difference between my project and Patrick's project is I focus specifically on how integrins interact in the tendon extracellular matrix, as opposed to what Patrick does with glycosaminoglycans.
Good. I think we have everybody. So then I think I'll just leave it up to the students. I'm recording this so that other people who are missing out the session, they can look at it later as well.
So we have some of the questions in the chat if we want to just go through those. The first one is, have you guys had opportunities to work with researchers from HSS? And I think for a lot of us, that has been absolutely true. So there's a really strong connection between Cornell and HSS. Me specifically, we get a lot of human synovial fluid samples from HSS. So we have the infrastructure to do all these different mechanical testing on the synovial fluid samples, but HSS is a great resource for obtaining all those human patient samples. And also we have regular meetings with clinicians and to get their feedback on what we're working on and make sure it's relevant to their practice as well.
Yeah, for me, that was a big draw of Cornell. This relationship with the best orthopedic hospital in the world. And I would say that it's not only like the BME department that has a good relationship with them, but the veterinary school as well. And so we have this sort of like access to really good resources in the vet school, and they're really well connected to HSS, and it's a very well integrated sort of community of research amongst those three I would say, institutions.
I think immersion also gives you a really good opportunity to work with researchers from HSS. So during the immersion term, a lot of the students who work in biomechanics labs will work with either like a clinician or like a PhD researcher at HSS. And oftentimes the people that you work with could be someone that is on your, ends up being on your special committee.
So as a first year, I don't really have any connection with HSS yet since I have not gone on immersion term. But I can go into the next question with, did you take any biomechanics specific coursework? So as y'all heard from me from the last Q&A, I originally came in as tissue engineering and regenerative medicine, so I didn't necessarily take the biomechanics courses that are given by the school. So Jonathan Butcher teaches one, I think it's soft tissue biomechanics 1 in the fall, and then Nellie teaches soft tissue biomechanics 2 in the spring. So I will be taking those classes this upcoming fall.
Yeah, so I came from a mechanical engineering background. So I have an undergraduate degree in mechanical engineering. And so I had like kind of the opposite concern of like, oh, I know mechanics, but I don't know like medical or biomedical types of things. But I think that there's really good resources for both. I think especially within, you know, the area of biomechanics, like we all come from, you know, slightly different backgrounds. And so we're all here to help each other. And we also have a weekly biomechanics meeting that's like 20 or 30 people attend. So we all know each other. We know all the PIs know all the students. And so we have really good resources. If you feel like you are missing an area of expertise, there's probably somebody else has it here at Cornell. Okay, so there's another question. Do you know if there are any cancer bioengineering courses? Does core concepts and disease touch on cancer? So it's been, I can let Erin answer that question because she's taking that right now. And she's thinking about courses much more than I think the rest of us.
Yeah, so I am currently taking core concepts in disease, and we do touch on cancer, specifically like neoplasia, so like a little bit more general than just cancer. And I'm actually presenting on cancer for that class once, you know, classes start back up. There is a cancer for engineers class, I believe it's called, that Brian Kirby teaches that my friend is currently taking, and she loves the class. The way he teaches it is everything's like a case study. So he like presents all of the symptoms to the class, and they're like, okay, what cancer is this? There's a bunch of other cancer bioengineering courses that she took because she's in Claudia Fischbach's lab. And I am blanking on all of their names, and I am so sorry. Does anybody else know any other cancer classes?
The only cancer class I know is the cancer for engineers, but that's because everybody talks about it, and it's like a class that everyone really enjoys with Kirby. But I'm not sure about anything else.
There's that one class where you, I didn't take it. You should probably ask somebody who's in one of the many cancer labs. But there's the course where you learn how to communicate with like people in the sort of cancer community. So I think that's a really unique sort of thing. I don't know if any of us have taken that class, but you will definitely have the chance to talk to somebody during all of this virtual visit who is familiar with more of that realm of things. But yeah, I mean, cancer research is a huge, you know, core competency of the department and of Cornell for sure. So there are a lot of opportunities.
I can start with this one, unless Patrick, you have something to add afterwards. So for the computational modeling with our work, at least in Larry's lab, some of the students do it, especially in parallel with their experimental studies. So I think, at least for Larry's lab, is what I can talk to you best, is that we usually have these experimental models that we're using and we get experimental results from that, but then we pair that with computational modeling. And that's our collaborators in both the physics department and the mechanical engineering department that have much stronger skill sets in that. But we do some minor computational modeling as well.
Yeah, and I'll add, there is, like we have a lot of resources in terms of like, for example, like micro CT, so you can use those for your models. Like we have very good imaging, like very, very good imaging resources here. And so that's very, very helpful for if you wanting to get, really good inputs for your computational models. There's also really a lot of people who do like fluid modeling. So if that's what you're talking about, there's also that. But yeah, I would say there's definitely a lot of resources for computational modeling. It just depends on what you're trying to do.
And to give, like a more specific example, Sean, one of the students in Larry's lab, he's looking at how different collagen scaffold architectures deform and fail under compressive loading, like for different types of tissue engineering purposes. And based on those findings, he's using micro CT scans of the scaffold and doing finite element analysis as well to couple that with his study, kind of looking to optimize collagen scaffold architecture for tissue engineering applications. And then the next question is about the musculoskeletal labs in separate facilities or all together. So the biomechanics labs are spread between 2 different parts of campus. Some people are located in Weil Hall and other people are located in like Upson and in the engineering quad. Larry's lab is in Weil Hall. And we uploaded a video of the Benaster lab that you guys can get a chance to see, but you can see all of the labs on the first floor all connected, and it's not all just biomechanics people, so it's a lot of other people, which is really nice. So there's a lot of shared resources between all the different labs. And as Patrick was saying with the biomechanics weekly meetings, that's when everyone gets together. But if there's a need to share resources, people can go across campus to use them.
Yeah, and Upson, so like Hernandez, Nelly's lab, Marilane's lab, and Eve Donnelly's group all share a lot of lab space. So we have a computer lab in Upson, then there's like another biomechanics lab, and then we have 2 wet lab spaces in Grumman Hall, as well as a microscope room.
I guess if there's no other questions, do we want to talk about why maybe we chose Cornell or something like that? Okay.
Go ahead. I think we have about six minutes left. So
okay. Yeah, so I think I mentioned earlier, like one of the reasons I chose Cornell from a research perspective is with this question, what other schools were you considering? So yeah, so I was really interested in like biomechanics in general and orthopedics, I'd say. So there are other schools that have, a lot of researchers in that area. So I was considering Columbia, WashU, and St. Louis. There are some people at BU I was considering. And so I visited all those schools. I would say that what set Cornell apart is that, I wanted to go somewhere where I didn't only have to rely on my PI, but also had access to many other PIs, just in case like my PI didn't know about a certain area I was interested in, or, if they had to move or something like that. So, Cornell just had a really long list of people who had really deep expertise in biomechanics and orthopedics. And that goes for all of the areas that, you could be considering, whether that's like tissue engineering or cancer or something like that. So I felt like I had a lot of options, and I felt like there was more unity amongst those labs. So I mean, like having that relationship with HSS, having our biomechanics meetings, like, people always talk about these collaborations, but, I definitely saw that that was true, and I've definitely experienced it myself. And so I've really benefited from that sort of like research community. And I feel like that's something that talking to people at these other universities, they definitely have it, but it's just a little different.
Yeah, I think something that you'll probably hear a lot talking with other students is that like the sense of community in the BME department. Like the collaborations are just like everyone's collaborative, everyone's really friendly, and you just kind of get this sense of like almost like family within the department. And I think for me, that was a big deal. I was choosing between here and University of Maryland College Park because I had done 2 summer REUs there. So I was super comfortable at UMD. And it wasn't until that I came to Cornell and I just had a really great visit that I was like, wow, okay, I really like this school too. And I know it's not because I know people and I know the school. So I felt like I wanted to step out of my comfort zone, make new connections with people. I came in more with like a general biomaterials focus, and was able to apply that into the orthopedic field with the 2 labs that I joined. But I definitely think for me, it was just the sense of community and diversity within the department, as well as like the Cornell engineering department as a whole.
For me, I think it's similar to what everyone else has already touched on. I was really looking at Cornell and then University of Rochester, since they're both tied to hospitals. And I guess for the biomechanics, it was the hospital for special surgery here. So I really like that clinical focus and that access. The resources at Cornell are really great. So any experiment that you really think of that you want to do, Cornell most likely has the facilities to do that. So you're not really limited by that, which is really exciting when you're planning out your thesis and the things that you want to do. And also why our collaborations are really great too. And also during the visit, kind of what Tibor was saying, everyone was just super friendly. All of the students and especially the faculty were really great during the visit. So if you guys have time to reach out or ask anyone questions, I would really recommend it. Everyone's really receptive to it. And I think that's what's made it such a great experience. So being in my 5th year and almost graduating, it's been like a really good sense of community here over the years.
So I actually answered this question in the previous session in the current grad student Q&A, so I'll just skip over my answer because I'm sure you don't want to hear it again. So the next question is, what labs did you guys rotate in? So my first 2 labs that I rotated in were Claudia Fischbach's lab and Larry's lab, and then obviously Nellie's.
Yeah, so I rotated in Larry's lab, and I also went to a lot of the meetings for like Mara Lane's lab and Chris's lab. And so I think that was really good because like I learned what everybody in those other labs were doing. And so even though I didn't join those labs, I learned some of the techniques and resources that they had and expertise they had available. And I still actually use like one of the techniques that I learned in Larry's lab to this day. And so, even though I didn't end up joining his lab, like I know their students in the lab really well. I, got inspiration and firsthand experience using techniques that I ended up using in my own research. So, that I think was really valuable.
Great. I think we've reached the 2-hour mark, so just to stay on schedule to give the students just a chance to check in some of the other sessions. But again, if you have more questions, feel free to reach out any of the students so we can connect you just with anybody who participated in here. I think you have your buddies as well. So I think we want to make sure you can get all questions answered, whether it's now or at a later time. Thank you, everybody. Oh, we got an extra visitor.
Thanks, Jan. Thanks everybody for logging in.
Thank you.
Thanks, guys. And also, Rebecca, Take is adorable. I wish I can cuddle with him right now.
Yeah, he's been great during this